What's up, everybody? This is Trey Biddy with HawgSports, HawgSports.com. Got a lot to talk about today on the show. Arkansas coming off a 44-30 win over the South Carolina Gamecocks. We're going to take one last look back at that game, as well as look ahead to Saturday's game against Bobby Petrino and the Missouri State Bears. Andrew Ellis is going to join us, as well as Danny West to talk some recruiting. All that and more on today's episode of HawgSports Live. And before we get started, I want to remind you there's plenty of ways to watch and listen. You can always tune in on Facebook Live. Be sure to follow the page if you haven't done so already. And hit the notifications bell so you're alerted. Well, where is my graphic? There it is. All right. Don't hit the notification bell. Just follow the page on Facebook Live and subscribe to the page if you haven't done so already. Join 90,000 Razorback fans in doing so. Also available on YouTube. Throw us a thumbs up on Facebook. Throw us a like on YouTube. And subscribe to the page on YouTube and hit the notifications bell there so you're updated. This is an interesting start. By the way, I want to say on the Walk and Talk, like 56% of the people that watched the Walk and Talk Saturday were not subscribed to the channel on YouTube. So if you want to get notified every time it comes up and you watch this and you watch it regularly, obviously, then hit the notifications bell. Also available on Apple Podcast. Throw us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere else you can think of to find a favorite podcast. HawgSports is just $1 right now for your first month at HawgSports.com. I need to get that just like automated, so I have to stop saying it every single time. I screw it up half the time anyway. All right. You want to get to what Sam Pittman had to say today? Here we go.
We're excited to play Missouri State. Last time Arkansas was relevant was when Coach Petrino was here, and we're very grateful for his time here and what he did for the program. You know, we've used that in recruiting, and without him and his staff, we wouldn't have been able to do that. So it'll be exciting for him, I'm sure, to come back here, but they've got a good team, ranked 7th in their in the FCS or FBS, and which one is it? FCS. I don't even know what we are, but they're ranked 7th and have a good team and went to playoffs last year. So almost beat Oklahoma State last year, beginning of the year, and Oklahoma State beat Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl. So we know that we have to be ready for a fine team that's coming in here.
A couple of points I want to get to first, just out of that press conference. Looking like Miles Slusher will be back now. It sounds like he may end up playing middle safety or something. You know, they obviously moved him from safety to nickel. He played middle safety last year in place of Jalen Catalon when he was hurt. But it sounds like Slusher could play middle safety, and maybe Kari Johnson be working maybe at boundary and nickel. So we'll see how that shakes out and everything. I think they like Jaden Johnson over at nickel. I think they feel like that's a better suited spot for him. So we could see a little bit more shakeup there in the secondary. Trey Knox sounds like he's going to be ready to go. I saw him walking in slides after the game and just had a little bit of tape on his ankle, probably about 85% of his normal gait walking. So I think they'll probably get him back. Got to mention this, Arkansas and Texas A&M in 12 days. That's Saturday the 24th. We'll be playing at 6 o'clock on ESPN. So just because they lost to Appalachian State doesn't mean, I guess, that they're not still a draw for ESPN in the 6 o'clock time slot. So that's a good deal. It's always, I mean, it's better to have a night game, in my opinion. But Arkansas and Texas A&M will be playing. Number 10 Arkansas, again. Number 10 Arkansas. AP poll came out, ranked them 10. Coaches had them 11th. ESPN has them 7th in their poll. It's a ranking that they do. I don't know that they take opinions from everybody. Pat Forty has Arkansas, I think, 2 in his, just based on what they've done so far kind of poll. So good to see Arkansas getting some respect. We had some interesting comments. So it's interesting. I post the walk and talk, and then there's some South Carolina fans in the comments like Arkansas paid off the refs. Like Arkansas was the team getting screwed over by the refs. Like I can understand like if it was like a close game and it came down to a call or something being ticked off, but this game was not as close as 44-30. How anybody could look at that game and say, man, South Carolina just got jawed by the refs or something. I mean, fooling yourself. I also had a guy say after the walk and talk, because I said like 72,000 plus in here, great crowd. He said, I don't know why. He's like, I wasn't at the game. I just saw some highlights, but I don't know why you feel the need to exaggerate the number of fans there. I mean, like, first of all, stop. You weren't at the game. And that's an official number of people sliding tickets, 72,000 plus of people sliding their tickets under the scanners, not including media, not including the teams. There's actually probably 74,000 there. Dude doubled down after that. He's like, I know what a full stadium looks like. You weren't there. I also had a lot of people asking about these glasses. I don't get any money for these. So these are like probably one of my most comments was people asking about these glasses. So I got these pre-golf season just to kind of up my golf game a little bit, the look and the performance of these. So these are Oakley Portal X black polished frames with Prism dark golf lenses. Okay. Great pair of sunglasses. They really separate the colors and everything. Like if you look at your grass, like you can see so much brown and stuff. So it really changes the colors up a lot. Really like these. Big fan. Oakley Portal X. I don't get any kickback or anything. I don't have a link in the description. I'm not getting any money. I'm just being a maven. Trying to help people out. All right, where do we want to go? Let's look back at this game. So I made several notes, obviously. I had like 20 different things. There was a couple of bad flags on the fourth drive for South Carolina. We talked about that, and I went back and looked at the game, obviously, several times. I've watched the video of the game several times. And I still think Dwight McGlothern, even if he's interfering on that, which he may have been, he definitely touched the guy. I think he's playing the ball, but it's still over the dude's head. And the Landon Jackson hands in the face deal didn't agree with that at all. He never got his hands in his face. Never. In Pittman, I don't think saw it right either because he's got the jersey. He never has dude's face mask. It's a bad call. It's 15 yards on both of those penalties. 30 yards on that scoring drive for South Carolina, and one of those was on third down. So shouldn't have even scored on that. The targeting overturn. So, first of all, I was at the game, obviously. I was disappointed in Wischusen, is that his name, and Orlovsky. And Orlovsky has no excuse. He's a former NFL quarterback. But their definition of read the rule book. First of all, he said if he's not defenseless, then he has to be leading with the crown of the helmet. No, he doesn't. That's not what the rule says. Look at the rule book. And then they made excuses like, well, KJ's hard to tackle. He's 6'3", 242. That makes him less susceptible to a concussion? What did he even do? He didn't mean to. I saw Jalen Catalon get kicked out of the Missouri game for clicking helmets a little bit. I've seen way worse than this. That targeting penalty, first of all, another part of the definition of targeting is if you can't tell, if you're undecided whether it's targeting or not, then it's targeting. If you can't find definitive evidence, say it's not targeting, then it's targeting. Dude was targeting. I can understand missing it, but overturning it, that blows my mind. You don't have to be, by definition, there's several things that can qualify as targeting, not just one thing. You can be leading with the crown of the helmet. It can be a defenseless, it can be a defenseless player. But even if it's not, leading with the helmet, shoulder, forearm, fist, hand, or elbow to attack with forcible contact to the head or neck area. And that's exactly what happened. I heard the excuse that he was turning his head. Doesn't matter. Helmet to helmet. It doesn't matter. He wasn't turning his head. It's just that KJ was coming this way and he was coming that way. So naturally his head goes that way while KJ's goes that way. That was absolutely ridiculous. Neither one of those guys understand the targeting rule. I don't understand how you can be in that position and not understand the targeting rule. They didn't understand the pass interference call. Or not pass interference, but intentional grounding. First of all, there's a misconception with intentional ground. There's nothing in the rule book that says the ball has to get past the line of scrimmage. Okay, it didn't, but there's nothing in the rule book that says that. What it does say is that if you're trying to avoid a sack and you throw the ball away and there's nobody in the area, then it's intentional grounding. Check, check, check. Even the dude said, he's just trying to throw the ball away. Well, he's inside the pocket. Okay, you can't just throw the ball away. You should know that. You're a former quarterback. That blows my mind. That and like trying to make every excuse. Oh, he tipped the ball. No, he didn't tip the ball. He didn't. Spencer Rattler saw Jordan Dominic, who, by the way, was being held on the play. One of like 4 times they could have been called for holding that they weren't. He's being held on the play, and they never even mentioned that. Otherwise, he just sacks him in the end zone or forces a fumble in the end. Maybe it's even worse. But, I mean, by definition, by every measure, that is intentional grounding. It was a correct call by the refs. I didn't like at half. I liked a lot, obviously, of what happened Saturday. But one thing, aside from the fourth quarter, which got a little out of whack, but one thing I didn't like, there's 1:02 left. On Arkansas's in 3rd and 14, and South Carolina's out of timeouts. Okay, you know that they want to try to get down there and score, get in scoring range, maybe for a field goal or something, because they know Arkansas is getting the ball coming out of half, and they have what was it, a 21-9 lead or something like that at that time. So instead of like running the ball, getting inside where it's a 40-yard something field goal, Arkansas decides to throw the ball in 3rd and 14. It goes incomplete, and they end up having to punt, and they get good field position at their 32-yard line. So I just felt like the better play there would just be to run the ball, get an easier field goal going into half, and South Carolina ends up getting the ball back with like 11 seconds or something, because you're able to just take the clock all the way down before that field goal try. So that was one thing that I thought maybe could have been done differently. Obviously, there's way more stuff that I really liked on that. The Landers dropped, obviously, was a play that stood out. At that point, Arkansas would have been up 28-9. Instead, it was 4th and 11. That was the most catchable deep ball I've ever seen. Landers he played a good game. He had 5 targets. He caught 4 of them, but that one was one where like we would be talking right now, wow, Matt Landers with a breakout game, 5 catches for 97 yards and a touchdown. Would have called it his coming out party. I did not like also the 4th and 1 play down there. Those of you who know me know I like to take your medicine. You get down in scoring range, kick the field goal unless it's like extremely close. But this was 4 feet. This was even farther than a yard, and they quarterback sneak it. I get it. Your offensive line's dominating stuff, but, you come away with nothing. You're 24-16 at that point. This would have put you up, a couple of scores. So to me, I know analytics say one thing, but to me, there's not a math formula that can truly measure momentum in college football. And momentum's a real thing. Rocket Sanders has lost 45-yard run. Warren Thompson was holding. I mean, now I didn't think it mattered in the play. I don't think the dude had the angle to get there, but he ended up losing. It was a 45-yard run. He ended up losing. He got credit for 10 yards. He had a 1-yard carry later in there, so, it would have been nice to add that. He would have had 24 – I mean, it's, again, butterfly effect. Everything changes, but 24 carries for 190 yards, 220 total yards. That would have been pretty sweet because he had 3 catches for 30 yards also. The 3rd and 17 was a disappointing play. Antoine Wells, as I said before, going into it, if you listen to any of the stuff pregame, is a stud from James Madison. Had a 63-yard touchdown catch on that play, but 3rd and 17, you would not expect that to be given up, and he was just wide open over the middle of the field. So one of just a few disappointing defensive plays, especially at that point in the game, before you get to the fourth quarter. And they're in desperation mode. I mean, like, they're clearly like realizing they're going to have to pull out all the stops. There's 3 onside kicks. They're throwing bombs. They're throwing interception as a result. There's another one that should have been intercepted. They're taking a lot of risks at that point, kind of going outside their game plan. So you have a lot of big plays that kind of skewed the stats at the end, but also, a lot of risks that they took. I felt like also people kind of got after me for this because I was saying Malik Hornsby be a good opportunity to get him in the game when there was like, we're down to 8 minutes left, 7 minutes left, something like that. And I tweeted that out, and people misunderstood what I was saying. I'm not saying get Malik Hornsby in at quarterback. I'm saying, get him in as a tailback or an upback or a wide receiver, the package with Malik Hornsby, because I think, South Carolina is an SEC team. If they know they don't have to defend the pass, they can gear up against the run and usually stop. Most SEC teams are going to be able to stop things coming inside, no matter how much better the offensive line is than the defensive line, because they're not worried about the pass. So to me, it makes a lot of sense to have a guy like Hornsby who you can get to the edge, who just can outrun people. People are going to take bad angles against him, or even just the threat of him doing that and being able to run inside some. I mean, I feel like that way maybe you can maneuver things a little bit better when you're trying to keep the ball against a team, that's in the SEC that's, going to be able to stop you in most cases when you're just trying to take the clock down. Something to consider. Let's see. Corey Johnson, 11-10 to play. A lot of people were upset about. Even the announcers were saying he barely touched him. I mean, if you're not this, so this was Corey Johnson when he got called for a PI. I mean, the receiver was trying to catch the ball. Corey made contact early. He never turned around. That's pass interference. I can't believe. Why would you? Some of the things that the announcers were saying, like with the penalty stuff, was just absurd. Like terrible. Like, do a little research, guys. I don't know if it was lazy or ignorant. Let's see. I thought this was a good play with 11:05 to play in the game. Drew Sanders lined up on the edge like he was coming on a blitz, but dropped back to a zone. And so if Rattler was looking like if he was looking off the defense, that's one thing, but it looked like he was looking straight to where that he thought he was going to be able to go there, and McGlothern took it away, and he ended up panicking and throw it over the middle and got intercepted in the end zone by Dwight McGlothern. So real good play there. Jashad Stewart was being held on that play also. Nichols got away. Their left tackle got away with holding 3 different times. I mean, I thought he could have been hit with it on the screen pass with 4:07 left. But yeah, I've gotten this article I wrote. It's called Long Last Look. Just several examples where they could have been hit with holding. That also happened on that Corey Johnson pass interference. There was holding on that. I mentioned the intentional grounding thing. Jefferson's fumble, I thought when you saw the angle from the pylon cam, now when I got home, I was able to slow-mo their slow-mo, and to me, it looked like he clearly had possession of the ball still when his heel hit down. Now, if you watch from the side, you can't see the heel. You can only see the front of the foot, but you can't see the heel. But it looked like when this heel hit down, it was so bang-bang anyway, there's no way that you can overturn. You can't make like a game-changing decision, fumbled out of the back of the end zone, which I didn't think he fumbled out of the back of the end zone either. But also, I don't think you could really 100% tell unless you had a drone flying overhead looking straight down. I thought it was the right call. Drew Sanders is incredible. Drew Sanders, I look down at my stats, he's got 6 tackles before anybody else has more than 1. I mean, dude is an animal. He was going berserk. I think people will start keying on him a lot more. I thought it was disappointing that KJ got a team rush for -5 when Arkansas was at 300 yards even, so they ended up with 295. And not that it matters, but it's a cool milestone to be able to point to, hey, ran for 300 yards against South Carolina. Remember that? But 295, still good. I think it's interesting, though, that KJ doesn't get credit for the lost yardage on that. It's a team rush, but if he gets sacked, he loses rushing yards, which is different than the NFL. Need to get Dominic Johnson healthy. A.J. Green, Rashad Dubinion are good, have a role, obviously. But when it comes to, like, moving the pile, falling forward, those kinds of things, aside from Rocket, Dominic's the only guy that can do it. I also thought that Rocket got kind of winded there. Had a lot of touches. Had 27 touches, 24 rushes, 3 catches. Let's see. There's a couple of more penalty explanations that I go over. There was a lot of inches to gain. I think 3 different times it happened, fourth and I don't mean just like 4th and 1 or 3rd and 1, like happened a few times. I mean like 3rd or 4th and inches. That popped up 3 different times. Arkansas got all of those when it was 3rd and inches. Pretty wild final quarter. I mean, they had 188 passing yards for the game and then 183 additional in the fourth quarter alone. picked off in the end zone. Hudson Clark nearly had another interception. Hudson Clark, of course, is catching hell. He played great for 3 quarters. He graded higher than any defensive back on the team on Pro Football Focus, 4th overall on defense. He had a bad play. He had 2 bad plays where a dude caught the ball and burned him, and he gave up another pass where Antoine Wells broke a tackle. Again, Antoine Wells, I think, is a special player, but of course he's going to be the only guy that gets any criticism because his plays are the only ones that matter. His faults are the only ones that should matter. Don't bring up anybody else. It's just Hudson Clark sucks, right? I mean, that was another thing. Trey, you got to quit defending Hudson Clark. He's terrible. I mean, just unbelievable how people pick him out when everybody has moments or lapses or bad plays. It's Hudson. He's the guy. He's the problem. Fans left a little early again. Not all fans, not most fans. It was a great crowd, but, it's a 2-score game with 6:35 left, and fans are filing out. I mean, I don't know if you guys have watched college football in a while, but a lot can happen in 6:35. A lot can happen in 6:35. I'll never understand, and again, this is not the majority of fans, and I get it, you want to beat traffic or whatever, but I don't understand paying the price you pay for a ticket and leaving the final 12th of the game just to beat a little traffic. I don't understand that. I mean, so much I've seen people file out of games like in Bud Walton Arena and Razorback Stadium where the ending changes. It's not what you thought it was going to be, or it becomes really tight and really scary and you've left. Why? I don't understand that. Maybe somebody can explain it to me. I get wanting to beat traffic. I hate sitting in traffic too. Overall, fans were great. I mean, it's 11 a.m. kickoff. The sun's blasting you. I get it. Trust me. I thought they were fantastic. I think they did exactly what you wanted. You wanted 72,000 plus or so. 76,000 would have been a sellout, obviously. That's a lot to expect for a game at that time. The crowd was loud. I mean, I mentioned that in the walk and talk. Somebody said they saw 106 on the decibel. I saw 103.1 was the highest I saw. 25% of onside kicks are recovered, so they were due. That was their 4th onside kick of the year. And I'm going to go ahead and clear Christopher Paul to play a significant amount. Christopher Paul graded out higher, I believe, than anybody on defense, including Drew Sanders, which is surprising. But, again, Drew Sanders played most of the game. Christopher Paul didn't play as much. But I think you can go ahead and say, Christopher Paul, get in there if you need to. Feel more comfortable rotating those 3 guys, kind of like the 3-man rotation you had last year. If you want to read that story, it's called The Long Last Look. I go in a lot more depth on every topic plus some others. Just kind of recapping the game. I'm still a little frustrated with the commentators' explanations and trying to forgive like targeting and stuff because KJ's big. I mean, give me a break. Ridiculous. KJ was 18 of 21, 162. Could have been a lot more. Raheem Sanders, 24 for 156. Drew Sanders was the player of the week. Walter Camp, National Player of the Week. He was also listed as one of the portal standouts. This doesn't have Nudie McGlothern listed, though. I mean, Nudie has 2 interceptions in 2 games, including a pick in the end zone. Again, I did not feel the game was that close. I never felt like, wow, this game's in jeopardy. Maybe that's why some of the fans left, because there was never that sense that South Carolina was going to win the game for me. I mean, I felt pretty confident going into it that Arkansas, I mean, read the content that I wrote before the game. I just did not feel like they were in sync enough or had enough, not dynamic enough on offense. Reviewing pregame polls, this is always fun. Andrew Ellis always asks 10 questions before the game. How many yards of total offense KJ Jefferson had in this game? What do you have, 60-something rushing yards? 250 to 299, so not quite was the leading vote. Spencer Rattler passing yards, 200, 249, had more than that. Obviously, most of the game they stuffed him pretty good. Most people said 200, 249 rushing yards for Arkansas, had 295, so we're 0 for so far. First player to score a touchdown for Arkansas. People said Rocket Sanders. Was it Rocket? I can't even remember who scored first. May have been Rocket. I can't even remember. What will be the result of Arkansas's first offensive possession? Most people said a rushing touchdown. That was right. So I guess it was Rocket, wasn't it? How many yards will South Carolina have against Arkansas? 300, 349, had more than that. Rocket Sanders touches. How many touches will he get? 16 to 19. He had 27. 16 to 19 was the leading answer. Who will lead Arkansas in receiving yards? Jaden Hazelwood was the correct answer. And who was it? I think Hazelwood led him in catches. He only had 30 yards. It was Landers with 45. So Landers led him in catches. Defensive MVP, most people said Bumper Pool. Bumper Pool had a great game, but Drew Sanders was next level. What will be the result of the game? Arkansas wins by 10 to 19 points, and check. Got that right, too. I thought it could have been a lot worse, South Carolina. I'm sorry. It doesn't mean I don't think the program's headed in the right direction. I think you need some help on the offensive line. Even though you got a lot of guys back, I think you got maybe a tandem that can work with Spencer Rattler and Antoine Wells. Jaheim Bell, I believe. Is a good player also. I think you're heading in the right direction. Get some more work in the transfer portal next year. You got Georgia coming up, but there's a 6-game stretch that you should be competitive in all these. Maybe win them all. So I definitely think South Carolina's a bowl team. It may not. I know how it feels when you lose, but winning on the SEC is tough, and Arkansas's got a good team. Arkansas projected right now in the Sugar Bowl. SEC versus Big 12. Arkansas Baylor. Who I got to watch that BYU game, a good bit of that. All right. Is it Danny West time? We're going to talk a little bit of recruiting now and some other things, I guess, with old Danny West. Your good old friend Danny West, your neighborhood recruiting analyst.
What's up, Trey?
Hey, Danny. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How's it going today?
Going good. I just went over a few things, some ridiculous comments from some South Carolina fans, and went over my glasses that everybody liked for my walk and talk, and that was about it. Now we went over a lot of stuff. We did kind of one last look at the South Carolina game. We haven't jumped ahead to Missouri State yet. We'll get to that here in a little bit, but. There's a little bit of recruiting news on over the weekend. What happened in Razorback recruiting?
Yeah, heard from a couple of guys this morning who were in attendance on Saturday. Obviously, the one that I think most people are concerned about was Fletcher Westfall, 6'8", 300, four-star. Yeah, I think he's a composite 4-star. Out of Leesburg, Virginia. I mean, it's just wild to me that they're able to get kids from the far East Coast like that. Not just once, but twice. He visited back in April, and he told us at the time, I'll be back in the fall for a game. And got to be honest with you, man, I hear that a lot. And sometimes I say, yeah, we'll see about that. We'll see who shows up or not. But lo and behold, here he came back with both parents this time. They seemed to have a really good time. Got to see more of Northwest Arkansas, not so much just the campus this time. They actually ran up to Bentonville, Rogers area. So that's always, a good thing in my opinion. Kind of shows them, just how big and how, how much it's growing here in Northwest Arkansas. So he had a good time, Trey. I think they're going to be in it for the long haul there. I can't sit here and tell you they're going to get him, but, I mean, all of the signs point toward we typically see at least one every year of a big-time offensive lineman who may not be even in your region, but Arkansas seems to have a crack at him, and I think that's Fletcher is going to be one to watch for 2024. You also had Brian Huff from right here within the state. Yeah, Valley View High School in Jonesboro there. So good to get him back on campus. Heard from Brian this morning, and he said, it was a good visit, everything he expected. And I think he's going to take a little time. It's still pretty early in the process for a junior in high school, but certainly one that I like Arkansas's chances with so far.
Danny West joining us again. You can follow Danny at Danny West 247 on Twitter, and does a great job there. If you want to read his content, you will need a VIP subscription because most of his content, when it comes to recruiting especially, is VIP. So both Westfall and Huff are 2024. And Westfall's number 199 ranked prospect in the country on the composite, and Huff is Huff's unrated right now,
Right.
But I'm sure that'll change soon. Malachi Singleton, he played in that first game versus Buford. It was a downpour. It was kind of tough to judge anything.
Yeah.
But he's got a broken foot. Heading into that game, had a broken foot, and is going to miss a good bit of time, unfortunately. Maybe get back for the playoffs.
That's the hope. I actually heard from his mother. He had a successful surgery late last week, but seems like everything's good. The kid's in good spirits, and like you said there, that's the I think kind of the best case scenario, that he might be back for the playoffs. But man, what a tough kid to go out there and play the first couple on basically a broken foot. No basically to it. It was broken. So, yeah, I mean, that's disappointing news. He was a guy that had already made a pretty sizable jump in the rankings, but I felt like probably had a little bit more to show this year. And unfortunately won't be able to put out a ton of film. But that's fine. Arkansas has got a really good quarterback in this class, and that's that's all that matters. It was a big talking point for several months here on this show and everywhere else I go on, but I think they got it right, man. I'm sure this thing will be something that he can get over pretty quickly and never have to worry about it too much. But yeah, so far so good. Outside of that one, I feel like they've remained pretty healthy as far as the committed guys, so knock on wood, that continues.
Yeah, Malachi Singleton is the number 14th ranked quarterback prospect in the entire country on 24/7 Sports, number 234 national. So he was a big-time get for Arkansas, and a guy that really fits the offense, I think, similar to KJ Jefferson. Anything else with recruiting, Danny, or new offers and things of that nature?
Yeah, they put out, offers have been really slow.
Yeah.
I think they put out 3 last week, and those were the first 3. In fact, I think I texted you at one point, first 3 I'd seen in several weeks, and I think they kind of anticipated that being the case, with loading up so quickly on this 23 class. I think they tried to utilize that and get a head start on 2024 and go full steam ahead into fall camp, which obviously is a big thing for them. So there's a lot of benefits from filling up that quickly. One of the downsides is, boy, it sure makes for a slow August, doesn't it, in terms of recruiting. So fortunately, it is starting to heat back up. Obviously, September 1st, coaches could go back out on the road for the fall evaluation. And I think the first few visits offers that we've seen go out are a direct result of Arkansas being on the road. So it could be another one going out here in a little while, probably this afternoon, early evening sometime. I would expect some more, we'll just say linemen, to be offered at some point in the near future.
What do you think about how things have started with this football team, Danny? I mean, and obviously, we're looking ahead to Missouri State, but there's not. I mean, Arkansas obviously ought to take care of business no matter what Bobby Petrino situation is going on. What do you think about things so far?
Well, I think you said it there. Kind of took the words out of my mouth. They've taken care of business so far. And, when you look around college football today, as of, 2 weeks into the season, there's just not a lot of teams that probably feel as good as Arkansas right now. So are there some issues they've got to take care of? Of course. I mean, the penalties are ridiculous, and they all seem to be really crucial, which I guess every penalty is. But, man, they seem very untimely in that regard. Obviously, some depth concerns in the back end of the defense. They're going to have to outscore people, man. That seems to be the trend early on, and that's okay because I feel like they've got the quarterback that can do it. I don't know about you, Trey, but he's as good as any in my book. He's kind of entered that first tier, the top tier of quarterbacks that I can remember seeing here. I don't think that's saying too much there. I think he's every bit as good as some of the ones we've seen and kind of correlate as being the best that we've seen here. So, man, I feel like they're going to have to outscore people. And the good thing is if I'm surprised by anything, I guess, it's probably looking up and seeing them number 1 in the SEC in sacks right now. It's, don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but if that's a trend that continues, I mean, if you could stay in the top 5 in the conference in that category, well, it sure helps you out in the back end of that secondary where you need some more depth. And, they've gotten beat too now. The other team's got pretty good players, and you're going to get beat every now and then, but a lot of it simply comes down to injuries, in my opinion.
Yeah. I don't know if I totally agree with you on them having to outscore people. I think there'll be some some more defensive battles coming up here. I
It'd be
think
nice to have a few more Drew Sanders, wouldn't it?
yeah, that dude is an animal.
And that's the thing. That's the difference, Trey. Alabama did have more.
Yeah.
They had several Drew Sanders. So that tells you the gap there.
Yeah.
It blows me away. That dude's a stud, man.
How do you let a guy like that get away? But I don't know. I think that I felt like South Carolina was just kind of in desperation mode, doing some things that they wouldn't have normally done. I mean, if you look at the stats through 3 quarters, Arkansas contained them pretty well. They only had 183 passing yards. They could not run the ball at all. Now, they'll face other teams with better offensive lines, obviously, that'll have more success on the ground. So, but we'll see. I think there could be some defensive battles too coming up. So, anything else you want to chime in with, Danny? What do you think about this weekend? I mean, Bobby P coming to town.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Probably an hour or two after the game ended Saturday, I put out a little Twitter poll. Are Razorback fans going to boo Bobby Petrino? And you want to hear the results? After 24 hours, 63% of the people said no, they will not be booing Bobby Petrino. So, we'll see on that. But I'm sure there's probably going to be some boo birds. But, I was kind of surprised that it was over 60% saying no.
Well, I mean, you got 37% that are going to boo him, so that'll be loud enough, right?
It seems like life to me.
Yeah. All right, brother.
All right, man. We'll see you.
Appreciate you. All right, everybody. That's Danny West. Again, follow Danny at DannyWest247 on Twitter. And if you want to read his content, you do need a VIP subscription, which is just $1 right now for your first month if you want to check that out at HawgSports.com. Notice we don't have any neck brace. There it is over there. Or anything like that. We haven't done it. To me, that was a dark time. Like, I'm not sitting here going to make fun of the situation with Bobby Petrino. It was a dark time. Arkansas's program was ascending. Obviously, a lot of people wanted to keep Bobby Petrino. I understand that he had to be fired. They didn't have any choice but to fire him given everything that had happened. But to me, that's a dark time. It's not something to laugh at or mock. So there's no neck brace image here with the picture of Bobby Petrino. All right, we're going to go to Andrew Ellis now. So Andrew actually took in a little bit of baseball also over the weekend. And for those of you who don't follow Andrew, you can follow him at Andrew Ellis247 on Twitter. And he covers just all aspects of Razorback sports, from football, basketball to baseball. How's it going, Andrew?
Things are going good. I'm feeling good. What's going on with you?
I'm feeling pretty good, too. It's a 2-0 start, and as we know, looking around college football, you got to be thankful for every single win that you get, just based on some things that have happened to some other programs. But, Andrew, just curious on your thoughts on Arkansas, South Carolina. Did it play out kind of like you thought?
I probably didn't expect quite as many points, but overall, I think, yes, it played out pretty similarly to the way that some of us thought. We thought Arkansas, home field advantage, more, ahead of schedule as a program compared to South Carolina. It's a game they should win, and Danny mentioned it. They took care of business, and that's kind of what Arkansas has done the last 2 weeks against, two opponents that I think we'll find out in the coming weeks are pretty solid. But, yeah, Arkansas just took care of business, did what they needed to do, and probably got a little weird in the fourth quarter, probably didn't want to give up as many points, and the penalties still jump out. But to this point, Arkansas has really taken care of business. And like you mentioned, you look around college football, it's a lot harder to take care of business week in and week out than you think. And there's a lot of programs that would love to trade places with Arkansas right now. And, I really like the feel of the way this is trending and the way that this team is performing. And I think there's obviously things they need to work on and areas we can talk about improvement in, but just overall, it's hard not to feel really good about what Arkansas has going on.
I mean, something that's so overlooked in college football, and maybe not as much anymore. I think people are grasping it a little better, but just the culture of teams across the country. App State has a great culture. I'm not so sure that Texas A&M does. In fact, they kind of got a weird culture, but I'm not so sure that they do. And you can bring in all the studs that you want. You can have the top recruiting class of all time, and I know those guys are young, but they've recruited extremely well over the years, have no business from a personnel standpoint losing to Appalachian State. But the culture is so important, and that's what Arkansas has too. And I think, Andrew, we're going to see moving forward more parity in college football just because teams are able to quickly reload with the transfer portal. I think we're going to see – I think it'll shake up college football playoffs, conference champions, and all kinds of things like that just because of the ability to quickly add players that are really good.
Absolutely. And, I think you can already see it happening a little bit, which programs are able to adapt and move forward and kind of change as college football is changing, change with it. And I think that's one thing that Sam Pittman and his staff have just done such a good job of, is they just kind of roll with whatever's happening, And Pittman, has things that he likes to do and the way they want to run their program, but he also is aware of what's going on in college football, and he knows he would be stupid not to try to change with it. And, I mean, you just look across the board. They just nailed these transfer. I mean, we've talked so much about Drew Sanders and Dwight McGlothern, and those are direct impacts where college football is changing. You have guys leaving your team, just go get guys that are better. That's just what they do. And it's, it's a simple, easier said than done. But I think the staff has just done a really good job of kind of adapting and moving with college football while also having their culture set in place and having their program and their standards set to where they want it to. And they're just bringing in different guys to do it. And there's just a really good vibe with what they have going on. And that's definitely not the case everywhere else. I mean, you see programs all over the SEC and everywhere else that are kind of just trying to get their head above water because they're drowning in this whole transfer portal thing. And even a program like A&M, who's bringing in number one recruiting class, like the highest rated recruiting class ever. And historically, that tells us that you're going to be pretty good, because that's kind of all we've had to go off of for the last 25 years of covering football is, recruiting classes and what, talent you're getting from the high school ranks. But there's a lot more to it. And I feel like Arkansas is doing a really good job of handling those new variables.
Andrew Ellis joining us. Again, follow Andrew at Andrew Ellis 247 on Twitter. Does a fantastic job, and read his content at HawgSports.com. Again, HAWGsports.com. Andrew, you got to take in a little bit of baseball last week also, a little fall baseball.
I did, and it's interesting. This fall is going to be a weird one for Arkansas, and obviously I get it. It's football season. Nobody's really worried about baseball. It is what it is, but they're playing scrimmages, and I'm definitely going to go out there whenever they have a chance. And there's a lot of new faces with this Arkansas baseball team, and I know there's a lot of guys, at least on our site, that have been curious to see how it all shapes up. And this fall is going to be an interesting one for the Razorbacks, just because there's so few returning pieces for the lineup. And Coach Van Horn talked about it the other day, that he can't remember being a part of a team where you pretty much just have no returners throughout. You normally have veterans and leaders all over the place, but college baseball is changing just like college football and college basketball, where there's just guys coming from JUCO, guys coming from other D1 programs, and you got guys turning down the draft to come to Arkansas. And so there's a lot of unknown variables, and that's why I think this fall is going to be very interesting for Arkansas to kind of figure out who they have and what they have and who's going to fill which spots. And so I think this fall is going to be an interesting one as these scrimmages take place throughout the next few weeks here and into the fall. And there's going to be an open scrimmage. I mean, all these scrimmages are open, but the day before the Alabama game, they're going to have this, what they call a fall classic, where they're going to invite a bunch of fans to come out to Baum and kind of get a look at the team after they've practiced for a few weeks. And I think it should be fun. And I would recommend any fans, if you're doing nothing Thursdays and Fridays afternoons, the team's out there scrimmaging, go get a look at, the new faces, kind of get familiar with some of the guys. And if not, you can read our content over at HawgSports.com.
Yeah, sounds like a lot busy work weekend for you, Andrew.
Hey, it's nothing. It's not work if you're enjoying it, right? Is that what it is?
That's what they say. It still feels pretty busy. Well, Andrew, is there anything else about this team that maybe jumped out to you? Maybe something that surprised you about this season that maybe you didn't foresee, whether it's personnel-wise or anything?
I was listening to you and Danny talk about defense and whether or not this team's you're going to have to outscore people and stuff like that. And I've always thought that football, especially in the year 2022, it's just hard to play defense. I mean, it's almost designed for defenses to struggle and meant for they want points to be scored and all that, and that makes sense. But I think even when you have elite talent like a Georgia, you're still kind of susceptible to a really good offense with a really good quarterback. And we saw that in the SEC championship game against Alabama. And obviously Georgia adapted because they have an elite coaching staff and elite talent. But again, that's not, a realistic option for most teams around the country. Not everyone can just beat Georgia and go get whatever talent they want. But one thing I'm noticing with this Arkansas defense is they're finding ways to capitalize with what they have, and they're trying to make plays that can change the game, which is kind of, at this point, I feel like that's all you can do against really good offenses in college football. I mean, they're leading the league in sacks, which is something that, literally none of us projected to happen. I mean, maybe it won't happen, but
a lot more four-man front, man. A lot more four-man front and 3-3-5. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're finding ways to just make game-changing plays. I mean, we mentioned the sacks. It says here on the stat broadcast they forced 5 fumbles, and I know 2 of those were actually recovered, 2 actual turnovers, but they're forcing fumbles. They're having interceptions. I mean, they're just making plays, which, honestly, in college football, it's hard to slow teams down consistently. And I think against good offenses and good quarterbacks, it's still going to be very hard for Arkansas or anyone else to do that. But I think this team is showing the capabilities that they can kind of get weird defensively and mix up their fronts, mix up their looks, and they're throwing different things at teams. And it's going to be really interesting to see what Barry Odom continues to do with his defense as his personnel continues to change a little bit.
So they had 5 fumbles, is that right? They had 2 fumbles on 1 play, and Arkansas didn't get it.
So it said, I mean, I'm just going by stat broadcast here. It says they forced 5 fumbles, and they recovered 2 of those fumbles.
Yes, I mean, it could have been, again, worse. So, yeah. All right, Andrew. Well, I think we did it. Looking forward to Missouri State game. Ought to be fun. A little night game in Fayetteville, and then, of course, the next weekend, another 6 o'clock game in Arlington. So, plenty of stuff going on. It's been a fun start to the season.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it all.
All right, brother. Appreciate having you.
Appreciate you.
All right, everybody. That's Andrew Ellis. Again, follow Andrew at Andrew Ellis 247 on Twitter. He just does a great job over there. We're really lucky to have Andrew on board with us. Where else we want to go now? Missouri State's 2-0. I guess we can talk about Missouri State a little bit since we did say it's Missouri State game week. Missouri State is 2-0. I haven't seen anything change for Arkansas's depth chart. Now, we could see some shake-up. This is the depth chart they release every Monday. We could see some shake-up in the secondary with Miles Slusher coming back, maybe him moving to middle safety. So I think that's probably a smart move to do with him. But all those guys are pretty interchangeable. They for the most part, know every spot. It's just who fits best where. So Missouri State is 2-0. They beat Central Arkansas. Is that this year? Yeah, 2022. They beat Central Arkansas in Conway. So that would be Bobby Petrino's probably, that we know of, his second trip back to Arkansas since I guess they got all their stuff out of the house and moved away. But he came for the Little Rock Touchdown Club a couple years ago in Little Rock, so made it to Conway, beat Central Arkansas 27-14, and then just beat UT Martin 35-30. I caught a little bit of that game, watched just a little bit of it. I'm going to watch more of it, obviously, but there were so many other good games to watch. I watched a ton of football again. I watched all of the BYU Baylor game. I watched Florida and how am I forgetting? Florida and Kentucky, which everybody doubts Kentucky all the time. Bob Stoops is a good coach. Anthony Richardson vaulted everybody in the quarterback rankings, and then I guess probably he's going to vault back a little bit. Not quite there. Yeah, I watched a lot of games. Watched some Mississippi State. Good weekend for college football. It's good when, that's the good thing about getting an 11 o'clock game for me, because I like to watch the other college football games so I can come back and watch them. And, I end up staying up till like 2:30 because I'm watching Arkansas game also. So last year, Missouri State finished 8-4. They made it to the playoffs in the FCS level. They lost to Oklahoma State in Stillwater in the opener, 23-16. That Oklahoma State team went on to win like 11 games. They came up like that short of winning the Big 12 championship last year. And Missouri State almost beat them. Something to keep in mind. Bobby Petrino coming back to Fayetteville. What will the crowd be like? Let's check out a couple of questions. We're going to wrap it up here pretty quick because we got practice we got to get to here. Don Eldred says lazy and ignorant are not mutually exclusive. In fact, I would agree with that, Don. Usually they go together. Cody L. James says, Hazelwood is becoming my favorite receiver. He plays hard and always making solid plays. Seems like he's just a little bit away from cracking one. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Darren McFadden's freshman year when he kept getting tripped up with his shoelaces, his shoelace tackles. He'll be close to breaking one. SC got away with several holding plays. I agree with that. Went back and watched. I watched Arkansas side too. I felt like Arkansas got justifiably hit. A couple times unjustifiably, but I felt like they got justifiably hit every time they made a penalty that stood out. Obviously, you missed stuff, but I felt like South Carolina got away with a lot of stuff. Otherwise, that's what I said. I feel like it could have been a much different margin, a larger margin. Arkansas's got to clean up penalties, though, overall. There's a couple that I didn't agree with, but still too many penalties overall. And they're big penalties. We're not talking about like offsides. We're talking about holding. We're talking about personal foul penalties, that are popping up. And you just can't have that. You shouldn't have 100, even if you have 10 penalties, 122 yards. That's a significant amount of yardage. Landon Montgomery's wanting that. Hey, College game day may be in play if Arkansas beats Texas A&M and Missouri State coming up and Alabama stays undefeated. Now, what I'd previously said was I don't think that ESPN College game day would have been able to resist Jimbo Fisher and Alabama, in Tuscaloosa after everything that happened in the offseason. But a lot has changed since then. Obviously, losing to Appalachian State doesn't make it as attractive. However, ESPN views it as plenty attractive. I mean, coming off of a game against Appalachian State, ESPN picks their games today, along with CBS, and says, we want Arkansas and we want Texas A&M at 6 o'clock primetime slot on ESPN, the mothership. So, I know a lot of people are sweating, thinking, oh, great, 11 o'clock SEC Network. Cody L. James says, and Trey, I don't have Apple. I got some off-brand podcast player. I hope the 5-star rating I gave you helped. I appreciate that, brother. Any 5-star rating we'll take as long as the maximum is 5 stars. Kathy Finley says, don't listen to the announcers, so I mute and listen to the radio broadcast. I like Chuck so much better. I do too. And I do that a lot for basketball because, Curtis is the main basketball guy and he's going to the games and stuff, so I'll watch a lot of them at home. And I'll do that. The only thing that bothers me a little bit on the broadcast for basketball is I can't hear the crowd enough. It just sounds kind of like, you hear Chuck and Zim talking, which, the analysis is better. And I also like that they say the names of every player so you get more familiar with the other team and stuff. But I want to hear more crowd noise. I want to hear the ball bouncing. I really want to hear the ball going in through the net, and I want to hear the crowd. And so that's the only thing that kind of turns me off a little bit with listening to Chuck and Matt, certainly not their commentary. And I know, like away games, there's probably no way at all to handle that, no way to do that. Steve Miller says Rocket for Heisman. Rocket looking good. Philip Doolin says, is Bishop injured? Yeah, he's a little banged up. Ryan Hostetler says, yes, he's out for Missouri State. Chaz Rice says, what time do you think kickoff will be against Alabama? It depends on what happens from now and to then, but 2:30, CBS could be a possibility. 6 o'clock. 11 o'clock, man. They like the 11 o'clock games because they want to compete with the big noon kickoff on Fox. If you notice the Alabama game against Texas, that's a game you would think, hey, prime time. It's 11 o'clock. It was, 11 o'clock. Eddie and Tammy Woodall says, is that my Eddie and Tammy Woodall? Trey, you're right about Hudson Clark. He's been our best corner in both games, in my opinion. He's been the most consistent. I mean, Nudi's made 2 huge plays. But Hudson's been the most consistent overall. He had a couple bad plays in the fourth quarter in desperation mode. Kevin Mercer says Poole and Sandals are the best linebacker duo in the nation. They might be. Adrian Jones says I might start doing that myself. Doing what? Oh, listening to the broadcast on the radio. Steve Miller says this game has to be taken very seriously. Too many other teams underestimate. I mentioned Oklahoma State, what happened to them last year, and Pittman's very aware of that also. Can't believe Rocket only had 24 carries. Seemed like he had 40. He looked wiped out. They've got to get Dominic Johnson back. Landon Montgomery says, "Man, there's nothing like fall in Arkansas." Man, when I woke out and got outside, I was like, "Whoa, short weather's over. Short weather's over." It was like 70 degrees, crisp and chilly. Felt like fall football time. John Blunt said, got the VIP last week. Love getting my text notifications of news. Appreciate that, John. Yeah, you can sign up for free text alerts. Text alerts are free. John Blunt says, I hope fans stay classy. You're going to see the students probably wearing neck braces based on some of the stuff I'm hearing. James Carpenter says, nobody's talking about the numerous holding calls against South Carolina in the fourth. I think I mentioned that. Absolutely saw a lot of holding calls. James Bradley says, can we fire up the passing game this week? Just cut it loose. I mean, I feel like we would have felt like that maybe a little bit more if Matt Landers catches that ball. But, I mean, Arkansas was just blowing it. Like, if you can run the ball the way Arkansas was, just do that. I mean, Is Arkansas going to turn into transfer use, says Jonathan Mosley? No, I think Ole Miss probably already has that. Ole Miss brought in 17 transfers. I would be surprised if they got 9 of them as good as Arkansas did. Will Causey says, do you still think Cincinnati would beat SC? Yes, I do. I sure hope we can stay healthy from here on out. Yeah, I still think Cincinnati would have beat them. Said that before going into the game. Steve Miller says our fans definitely shouldn't boo. We've gotten past this. I mean, I'm not saying they shouldn't boo. I'm just saying it's not funny to me anymore, like what happened there, because the next 10 years after Petrino put his motorcycle in the ditch sucked. I mean, it was a rough 10 years. There were some moments here and there, 2015, but overall, I mean, it was the worst 10-year stretch of college football ever in Arkansas history. And it all started with him putting that motorcycle in the ditch. Yeah, I mean, looking back, it's just not funny to me anymore. It's just kind of sad and pathetic, disappointing. But, yeah, I mean, kids will be kids. I like what you said about the karma, Steve Miller. Get the karma back on your side. Leave the past where it belongs. I read a quote. It was good. It was said, if you want to, what was it? If you want to change your future, you got to stop worrying about trying to change your past. So looking ahead. Also, BYU looks real scary now. BYU looks big. I watched the BYU game, obviously. They got a big offensive line. They are sound. That's what I'll say. Nobody was like, wow, that guy's scary. It's just like sound. Like you don't see a lot of mistakes from them. It's going to be a tough one, especially playing in that altitude. Mark Douglas says the transfer making so much good press nationally has to make it so easy for our staff. I mean, it's got to continue. You know, you need to bring in a decent number of transfers next year also. So it's got to continue. Dustin Hoofman says, proud to see the physical play and continual growth of the players. Let's see. What's the update on Slusher? He looks like he's going to be good to go this week. Usually that's pretty consistent, missing one game with an injury like that. Definitely got to clean up penalties. Do you think we try to get Keytron involved a little bit too? Yeah, I don't think Keytron has a pass catch yet, does he? I mean, I still think you got to get the other guys involved too. Brent Danley says, I just want one game that doesn't require Xanax. Just one. I mean, why go numb? That's what's the beauty of college football. That's why I love it so much. I feel like I'm going to have a heart attack one moment, and the other moment, you know, I feel like I'm going to have a heart attack from jubilation. I mean, college football is just so exciting. The pageantry of it, the fans, the trash talk, the rivalries, the big swings back and forth. I don't know, the fact that they're kids, that they go to the institution that you know, either grew up in that state of, or you grew up following your entire life, or you went to that school. Just a lot of great things about college football, a lot of things to enjoy, and it's especially good when the team you cover or the team that you're a fan of is winning, which Arkansas has going right now. All right. I feel like we did it. I feel like we did this show justice today. Some good comments, some good guests, and I hope some good commentary that you enjoyed also. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Remember, give us that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe to the page if you haven't done so already. Hit the thumbs up, like, share, follow, comment, all of those good things. We'll be back with you guys on Thursday to take a closer look at this game. And we're going to have Curtis Wilkerson. I believe we'll also have Keith Grayson joining us, give us a little bit of insight on what he thinks. Obviously, he's got a lot of history and remembers the Bobby Petrino years very well, so it should be some good insight there, and maybe we'll laugh about some things with Bobby Petrino at that time. All right, everybody, thanks for joining me. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, and we'll catch you next time.